Is this Russian thing going to affect us? No, don't answer that. Don't answer that.
Don't answer.
I'm a lawyer.
I'm talking about green finance, not red finance.
The projects that I've seen that the Chinese banks have issued green bonds for are actually more advanced stage, like new and renewable sources of energy, wind farms, solar farms, and so on, which are very easily estimated as green.
The difficulty, my understanding, and we've talked about this, is retrofitting an existing factory is almost more expensive after you get past that than building a new one, because the new one is going to be more efficient. It's going to be purpose-built. You're not interrupting it. It's going to be there. Is green financing really looking at that, or is it looking at retrofitting, or doesn't it matter?
Well, I think green finance is looking at all kind of projects, and they also are looking at this kind of problematics. That's for sure, because it's not only about green, it's also about sustainable, not only in an environmental sense of the word, but also in terms of socially sustainable ESG. So of course you have to have a closer look on the impact in terms of job creation or job destruction. That's very clear, because otherwise you are creating new problems instead of offering solutions.
This is clearly a human resource issue. I mean, you need really smart people. Is that part of the draw? Is it because of the kind of built environment that you think that the kind of human power, the brain power, human resources are going to come to Luxembourg?
I think again, this is one of the biggest challenges we are all facing. Not only Luxembourg, but also other places that are trying to develop ESG or green finance in its place. Because what we are lacking right now, a bit everywhere, is of course a pool of talents. We need to develop these kind of competencies. We need to train people in ESG, in green finance. I even think that green development or sustainable development should be a part of the curricula of every school and every university.
Are you looking to doing that in Luxembourg itself, establishing at least a department that's looking at this?
Exactly. For example, on a very short-term perspective, the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, the Green Exchange, has established what they call the so-called academy, the Green Exchange Academy, meaning that this is a kind of institution where you are bringing experts from all over the world, and mainly these days from China, because at the end of the day, as you very rightly said, it's all about people being able to develop these products, but also being able to convince other people to invest in these products.
So when we're going to Luxembourg?
I'm sitting on a suitcase.
Well, after COVID.
Yes, of course.
No, for me, after having spent some time in the United Nations, I look at this and I say, okay, China is only a test case. But if China takes the lead with Luxembourg on green finance, this will lead to an explosion in other developing countries as well. Because China is well involved in Africa, in rest of Asia, and so on.
And with the kind of deficits in infrastructure that are out there, and the fact that China is pushing industries outside of China.
That's right.
I mean, China, quite frankly, has done very well. They have the planning and ability to implement that goes beyond a lot of countries. How about other countries? A lot of people talk about the global South.
Yes.
And if you start looking at the carbon footprints, definitely the South is where infrastructure money is needed in order to clean up factories, power producing. I mean, coal is still the biggie down south because it's cheap. How is the mechanism going from Luxembourg and a beautiful things down to places which are a little bit more hard pressed?
Yes, these are the kind of questions that are currently discussed, and climate change is definitely a global threat. We cannot find global solutions or develop global solutions without global partnerships. So it's not the North or the industrialized part of the world against the poorer.
No.
Because otherwise we are ending up nowhere.
But I mean, I've talked to some people in China, India, even Vietnam, and they said, we're criticized for our carbon footprint, but the stuff we're making, we're shipping to Europe, we're shipping to the US, we're shipping other places. So he said, we say cut down. On the other hand, send me my washer and dryer and my car and things like that. Perhaps this is a way of kind of equalizing it, getting developed nations who have perhaps more money, more to invest. Is this part of the thinking? How can we kind of close this loop?
Carbon tax.
And stop trying to blame others for things that we want? Is that
carbon
part of it?
tax? Absolutely. I think there's been quite a discussions about this in China. We are manufacturing here, so we have a huge carbon footprint, and carbon tax would be disastrous for us. But what about the consumers of this in Europe and America? There has to be a balance between the producers and the consumers.
Is there any kind of relationship between carbon credits and green bonds? Is that going to be something where, say, oh, this project is producing so much and it's creating, carbon credits, or it's reducing or selling carbon credits? Is that part of the equation?
This is also part of, I would say, the overall green finance segment, because again, we need to develop global solutions, and cutting carbon emissions and trying at least to set a global carbon price. It's part of the equation, definitely, because otherwise we are not going anywhere. This is something where also the developed countries need to do some, and they are doing this. Take some commitments in terms also, again, of giving money to developing countries.
I really hope that happens, because I don't want to say I'm pessimistic about it, but...
We're old. We're always pessimistic.
No, because I see cases where, for example, vaccines for COVID-19, they rather sit in the refrigerators of developed countries and let it expire instead of shipping it to Africa.
I completely agree with you. It's an ongoing tragedy. But it is, I mean, we're seeing increased economic disparity. And I'm hoping that green bonds, and it sounds like there is a real effort to make it one of the balancing items, to allow poorer countries to have access to what they need
renewables, for example.
Not just for them, but also for the world in general. Now, Luxembourg this is not the only thing you guys have going. I know you have a multi-pronged and very sophisticated financial system. Can you describe it a little bit?
The financial sector, well, in Luxembourg, we, as I said, we are the second most important investment center in the world after New York. Then, of course, the second pillar of our financial center was private wealth management.
Is this Russian thing going to affect us? No, don't answer that. Don't answer that.
Don't answer.
I'm a lawyer.
I'm talking about green finance, not red finance. No, but what I wanted to say, of course, in the past, we used to have, let's say, a different financial center. We were specialized in different activities, but the pressure coming from, especially from outside, was getting too strong, and so we decided to become fully compliant with all the different regulations and forthcoming standards that have been there. And as a matter of fact, it helped us a lot to encourage the development of the private wealth management, because people no longer want to stay within jurisdictions that are non-compliant or a little bit compliant.
Are you regulated? You're regulated by the EU monetary authorities, right?
Yes and no. Yes, of course, we are following and also helping to elaborate new regulations, but we have our specific regulator.
National
regulator.
Last question, and this is something really, I mean, China's digital yuan,
digital
renminbi.
Yeah.
I mean, this seems to me that it should be a game changer, and it's going to offer a lot of different opportunities. I know that across the world, people are looking at this very seriously. Is Luxembourg, and does this change the equation in ways in terms of reducing costs of issuance and things like that?
I think we are still at the beginning of this process. Again, to come back to one of the points we were discussing beforehand, I mean, to avoid greenwashing, it would definitely make sense to combine, let's say, blockchain technology with green finance products in order to really have a
complete
clear
record,
yes,
transparency.
Exactly. So there are a lot of possible cooperations, there are a lot of potential technological breakthroughs. But again, we are at the beginning of this very, very interesting process.